Hey guys, welcome to another video. Happy New Year. Well, late Happy New Year anyway. So, I'm gonna get right to the point. This is going to be my complete Resident Evil collection. This is literally going to be everything I have. The games, books, and the movies. So, let's not waste any time. Let's start right at the beginning. Resident Evil. This is the first game. As you can tell, this is the original release in the long box. These things are very, very delicate, very hard to take care of. As you can see, the tab, the flap on this one's starting to come off. But really good game. But this version's kind of hard. It doesn't have the auto aim, and I still don't have the manual for it, but I will get it soon. So there's the disc, and I still don't know what that background is. I think it's just a random image. I don't think it's actually anywhere in the mansion. But yeah, that's Resident Evil. Then we have the Japanese version, Biohazard. It's the same game, except there is some differences. The opening cinematic is uncensored, but it's still in black and white. And the scene where Kenneth's head falls off, that's in this version. And the scenes where Chris is smoking, that's also in this version. There's the disc. And it has the same picture from the long box on the manual. So that's Biohazard. Then we have the PC version of Resident Evil. Now this is very hard to play on modern systems. If it's not Windows 95, the game will not run properly. But luckily there is a fan patch to get this game running on modern systems, and that's how I play it. This is basically my primary version of Resident Evil 1. If I want to play Resident Evil 1, I just boot up my my laptop and I just play it there. So yeah, that's Resident Evil on PC. It is uncensored. The opening FMV is in color, and it has all the scenes where Chris is smoking and stuff, but it also has some extra unlockable weapons and stuff in it. So yeah, Resident Evil on PC. Resident Evil Director's Cut. This is the original version of Director's Cut with the original music. It's basically the same game except with some extra content, like there's an arrange mode, there's a training mode, just basically easy mode, and auto aim was added into the game. But despite the name, it's still censored. Nice job, Capcom. And the last version of Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil Deadly Silence. This, for a long time, was my favorite version, and that has been surpassed by the PC version. It basically has the original Resident Evil, plus some extra content. Like, there's an all-new mode called Rebirth Mode, where you go into first person and you knife some zombies and monsters and stuff. I never really played Rebirth Mode. I mainly just played the original game. So yeah, Resident Evil Deadly Silence. So that's the first stack done. Now, on to Resident Evil 2. So here's the Japanese version, Biohazard 2. It's basically the same as the American version, except the death animations in this game are completely censored out, which is kind of odd. But there's disc 1. There's the manual, and there's some memory card stickers in there as well. Flip it over, and there's disc 2, clear disc. And yeah, Biohazard 2. And here's the American version, Resident Evil 2. As you can see there, this is the original version, which has the went apart in the movie promotion. Basically, this was when George A. Romero wrote the script for the Resident Evil movie, and unfortunately it never really panned out, and we got the Paul W.S. Anderson movies instead. I I kind of wish that we got George Romero's version of Resident Evil, but unfortunately that, I guess, it just wasn't meant to be, and now he's dead. Rest in peace, George Romero. But anyway, there's the Leon disc. Ad for Breath of Fire 3. Flip it over. There's the Claire disc. And there's some artwork back there. Crap. So, that's the original North American release. Then we have the DualShock version. As you can see, this is the greatest hits version, but it is DualShock. So it has the battle mode and the rookie mode and all that stuff. It's just the greatest hits version of it. I don't have the original release of the DualShock version, unfortunately. That one's very hard to find. All I could really find is this, so I just have to settle with this. So there's the Leon disc and the Claire disc, and there's the same background artwork from the original release. And then we have Resident Evil 2 on the Nintendo 64. I actually got an N64 recently, and this is one of the first games I bought, was this version of Resident Evil 2. It's the same as the PlayStation version, except there are some EX files which connect the previous Resident Evil games to this game, and it foreshadows Resident Evil 0, which was originally in development for the Nintendo 64, but it was cancelled in favor of the GameCube. And you can change the blood color, and there's a randomizer mode and all that stuff. The only thing that's missing is Extreme Battle Mode, but other than that, it's still Resident Evil 2. Alright, next we have the original release of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis with the Dino Crisis demo inside. This is not my favorite game in the series. I only completed it once, and no, I did not kill Nemesis. It did make the game a little harder, but not by much. You don't have to kill Nemesis in this game, it's just a little optional thing, but it is recommended that you do, because you'll get extra weapons and stuff like that. So there's the game, and then there's the Dino Crisis demo, and then you got some background artwork there with Jill and Nemesis. So that's Resident Evil 3. And to end off the PlayStation era, we have Resident Evil Survivor, which is not the best game in the series, but I quite enjoy it for what it is. And if you think about it, the story of this game is actually pretty dark. If you actually read the documents and pay attention to the story, it's actually one of the darkest games in the Resident Evil series in the original PlayStation era. So, but it's still a bad game, I will admit that, but it's not as bad as everyone says it is. So yeah, that's Resident Evil Survivor. And that finishes off the PlayStation 1/N64/PC era. Now we're going to go on to the PlayStation 2, and the first game to come out for PS2 for Resident Evil was Code Veronica X. This is a port of Resident Evil Code Veronica from the Sega Dreamcast, which unfortunately I don't own a Sega Dreamcast. I would really like to own one though. But this is basically the director's cut of Code Veronica with some extra cutscenes and stuff. This is the only original Resident Evil game before Resident Evil 4 I never really played. I have the HD version on Xbox 360, but Code Veronica has been one of those games where I never really bothered to play. I have it just to have it, but I will get around to playing it someday. And I'm just going to put these two games together because they're basically the exact same game. We've got Resident Evil Outbreak and Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. These are basically the very first Resident Evil games to be online. You could go online back in the day and play co-op Resident Evil, which is pretty cool. This is before Resident Evil 5. And there's the disc. It's actually a very good game. At least the first one. I never really played the second one, but the first game is really good, really good. And it has, if you play Lone Wolf mode on Outbreak File 1, it makes the game a whole lot more challenging, and you really have to manage your resources well. Same with this game, but again, I haven't played it. And this was the first Resident Evil game. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is the very first Resident Evil game where you could simultaneously walk and shoot at the same time. I think you had to press L2, but this was the first Resident Evil game to do it. So yes, there was a game before 6 that could allow you to walk and shoot at the same time. Resident Evil Dead Aim. This is the oddball of the Resident Evil games. It's basically a sequel, semi-sequel to Resident Evil Survivor, except the gameplay style is completely different. You walk around in third person, but when you're shooting, you shoot in first person. So it's a combination between the traditional Resident Evil games and the style of Survivor. This uses the gun con too, unlike the PlayStation version, at least in North America. You could not use the light gun with Survivor, but you can use the light gun with this. But if you don't have a light gun, you can use a USB mouse. All you gotta do is just plug it in, and the game will automatically work with it. But you still need a controller to move around. The mouse is just used for shooting. But anyway, there's the disc. So yeah, that's Dead Aim. And then the last Resident Evil game to come out for PS2 was, at least in North America, was Resident Evil 4. This is a port from the GameCube version. This is technically inferior to the GameCube version, mainly because of its worse sound and its worse looking graphics and stuff, even though it's progressive scan. The PS2 does not clean up well. But anyway, this was the first version to have all the extra content, including separate ways and the extra weapons and the unlockable costumes and stuff. Yeah, really nothing else to say. It's Resident Evil 4. Alright, now on to the Nintendo GameCube. I'm going to put these two games together. This is Resident Evil 0 and the Resident Evil remake. These came out around the same time. Obviously, if you know me, I don't really enjoy Resident Evil 0. I've tried to play it, trust me, it just hadn't worked out. But the remake, I really enjoy the remake for what it is. It's a really fantastic remake, and it really set the bar high for the series. Actually, both these games did. They really, these games are survival horror at its best, and they're as dark as Resident Evil has ever gotten before Resident Evil 7, of course. But unfortunately, as we know, Resident Evil Remake on the GameCube and Resident Evil 0, these games did not sell very well on the GameCube, resulting in Capcom changing the direction of the series with Resident Evil 4. But before that, Capcom ported Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica to the GameCube, and the only port I have is of course Resident Evil 2. This is basically the same as the PlayStation version. It has all the same content from that version, except everything is crammed onto one GameCube disc, which is nice. So you can play Resident Evil 2 in one sitting if you want, without getting up to change the discs. So yeah, nothing much to say. It's just a port, and it looks a lot better too. And then we have Resident Evil 4. Now, if you know me, this is not my favorite game in the series. I don't like it. I don't dislike it as much as 0. There is some good things in Resident Evil 4 that I like. I really like the first half of the game, where you're in the village and basically everything before the castle. I really, really enjoy. It's when you get to the castle is when I start really disliking the game. I did play through this game once. It was on the Wii. I don't have the Wii version anymore, but I played through it once. I just didn't like Resident Evil 4. I'm sorry. I know it's a popular game, but to me, this game's not Resident Evil to me. I'm sorry. It's just not. Alright, now on to some side games. We have Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles. Now, these are on-rail shooters in style of the House of the Dead games. This game covers Resident Evil 0, 1, and 3, and it has an original story. And this game covers Resident Evil 2 and Code Veronica, and it has an original story as well, revolving around Krauser from Resident Evil 4. Because in Resident Evil 4, if you've played that game, the appearance of Krauser makes it seem like you're supposed to know him from before the events of 4, but he just showed up. But this game gives him a little bit more backstory that he worked with Leon before, so yeah, it kind of fleshes out Krauser a little more and fills in some plot holes Resident Evil 4 had. But anyway, that's Chronicles games. Really nothing much else to say, except this was the remake of Resident Evil 2 we had for a very long time, until the upcoming remake, which, by the way, the demo was amazing. Resident Evil Revelations for the Xbox 360. This came out for the Nintendo 3DS originally, and then it was ported to the 360, the PS3, and PC. It has recently been ported to the PS4 and Xbox One, but I'm just going to stick with the 360 version. A lot of people dislike this game, which I don't really understand why. This game is actually pretty good for what it is. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a good game. And it kind of reminds me of the earlier Resident Evil games in the series, like 2 and 3 and stuff like that, so with a little bit of 5 mixed in, so yeah, that's Revelations. And now, if you've seen my original collection video, you know I used to have Resident Evil 5 and 6 on the 360. I traded those in and got the PS4 versions, so but before we get to those, here's Resident Evil Origins Collection, which collects Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Remake from the GameCube. Obviously, they're remastered versions. They support widescreen and all that stuff, and the remastering process on 0 looks a lot better than the remastering process on the Remake, which is kind of odd. But and as you can see, there's the Resident Evil 20th anniversary logo, which is going to appear on a few of these games. So yeah, there no manuals, just gives you the game. So yeah, that's Origins Collection. And call me a hypocrite, or a loser for owning 3 different versions of Resident Evil 4, not really liking it, but I am a collector. I'm willing to give this game another chance. So yeah, that's Resident Evil 4 PS4, obviously remastered 60 frames per second. My favorite post 4 Resident Evil 4 game, Resident Evil 5. Heck yeah. Yes, I actually do like Resident Evil 5. I know for people who've seen my original collection video, the very first Resident Evil collection I posted, I did not really enjoy Resident Evil 5, but I actually gave it a chance, and this game's not that bad. It's basically a Resident Evil 4 clone in a way, but in my opinion, I kind of like this better than Resident Evil 4. I'm sorry, I just do. I don't know why, but I really do enjoy Resident Evil 5. The only problem, Cheva's AI is terrible. That's the only issue. And then, Resident Evil 6. I know, if you've seen my 2018 collection video, you know that I said I would not be rebuying Resident Evil 6, but ultimately I did. From what little I've played of it, it's actually not as bad as I remember. So, there you go. And then the last Resident Evil game I have currently, Resident Evil 7. This is the Gold Edition. I actually did wait to get the Gold Edition. I knew Capcom was going to do this, so I'm glad that I waited. And I got it for $20. Brand new. At GameStop. I don't know how that happened, but I did. But anyways, this game is absolutely fantastic. It brings Resident Evil back to its roots, the way it's supposed to be, to the survival horror roots. I know a lot of people did not enjoy the first person mode, but personally I didn't care. I think the first person mode, in my opinion, really added to the atmosphere and all that stuff, and they made it work. I played through the game twice. I need to play through it again. This game is fantastic. If you haven't played Resident Evil 7, and if you hated Resident Evil 7 initially, give it another chance. Get your head out of your butt. Stupid Resident Evil fans. I know, that's another rant for another time. Alright, now that the games are done, we're going to go on to the movies. Resident Evil 1, starring Milla Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez. This movie's actually not that bad. It's the only Resident Evil live-action movie that I actually really, really do enjoy as a movie and not as a guilty pleasure. And then we have Resident Evil Apocalypse, which is a complete guilty pleasure. It actually is a pretty decent adaptation of Resident Evil 2 and 3, but Alice really steals the show. She's a freaking Mary Sue. But Milla Jovovich is actually a pretty decent actress. I watched The Fifth Element, and she was very good in that movie. I don't understand why her character is so bland, and why her acting in these movies are so bad, because she can actually act. And then the rest of the movies I have in this complete collection. So, yeah, 2 movies to a disc. I know. I don't like it either. Extinction is actually another really good movie in the series. It's a completely original story. It doesn't take anything from the games. And it has a different director. So, Afterlife I haven't seen. Retribution I haven't seen. Let's not talk about the final chapter. That movie is garbage. Alright, now on to the good ones. Degeneration. This is the first Resident Evil CG movie. Very good movie. Definitely made for the fans. If you like the live action movies, you probably will not like the CG movies, because the CG movies are made for the hardcore fans. Which I am a hardcore fan. I really do enjoy Degeneration, as a movie. This came out at the same time as Resident Evil 5, so of course there's an ad for 5, and there's the disc. But this is actually a really, really good movie. And it's sad that this was a direct-to-video release and not a full theatrical release, because I guarantee if this was a theatrical release, it would have made a butt-ton of money. And then we have the second CG movie, Damnation, which in my opinion is like Degeneration, but times 1,000. Like, seriously, this movie is leaps and bounds above Degeneration. It's just a good movie. There's really nothing else to say about the CG movies, is that if you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan and hate the live action movies, watch the CG movies. I have seen Vendetta, and I actually really do enjoy Vendetta, but I don't own it yet. And now on to the books. Resident Evil 1 Strategy Guide. Really nothing much to say. It's a strategy guide. And the Resident Evil 2 Perfect Guide. This is for the original release, of course. It doesn't cover the battle mode. It literally covers everything. There's some nice artwork in here. It literally tells you the differences between easy and normal, and tells you how to shoot properly without getting bit. Tells you how to fight with the freaking knife. It tells you about the item boxes. It tells you the monsters and how much ammo they take per weapon. It covers both the A and B scenarios, and it even covers, there's William Birkin's eye, it even covers the Game Shark codes. Seriously. Yes, this page is falling off. It was like that when I got it, unfortunately. It covers the Game Shark codes. Like, wow. It's this guide is freaking amazing. I'm so glad that I own this. And then we have some of the S.D. Perry novels, which I haven't really read, but I did read some of this one, Umbrella Conspiracy. Very different from the game. The plot's the same, but it adds a lot more character to Jill, and I can't really explain stuff very well, but give this a read. And there is, if you don't like to read books, and if you don't have time to, like me, there's an audiobook on YouTube, just look it up. And City of the Dead. This covers both the both scenarios, like the game. And I did read some of this one, as you can tell. Like, actually got pretty far in it, as you can see right there. But this is actually a very good, from what I've read, it's a very good novelization of the game. Alright, so that was my complete Resident Evil collection. I know this video was very long and drawn out and dry, but I'm glad you could sit through with me, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.